brew tubers, happy Homebrew Wednesday, although this will probably be posted on Thursday. So in this week's Homebrew Wednesday, I'm going to sample 2 of my beers. I have 3 to sample, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to drink 2 beers tonight. So I already tasted one of my 6 bottles of porter. It wasn't tasting as good as I explained in the last Homebrew Wednesday I posted before Passover. But I'm like, you know what, it was only 2 weeks in the bottle. You know, it's a dark beer, a very fresh beer. It's not hoppy. Let me give it another few weeks and see. So I'm not going to do the porter tonight. I'm going to do my ESB and my triple. I haven't had the triple in about 3 weeks or so. So it's been in the bottle for a little over a month. So I'll see, you know, if it's finally fully carbonated or how close it is to carbonating, because I've heard that triple stick or Belgian beers at some points, at some times, because of the high ABV, could take a little longer to carb. So, but I'll get more into, you know, information and stuff about carbonation with that when I get to the beer. But the first beer is going to be the second of the 2 1 gallon batches, which is the ESB. So let's crack it open. And I did not delabel this bottle. I reused a Evil Twin Lil B bottle, which is one of my favorite Imperial Porters. And so it's pretty darn carbonated from using one of those carb tabs I bought from Northern Brewer. Nice. Not much of a head. It's definitely looks like it's gonna fizzle pretty quickly, but the porter had the same issue. It didn't really have much head retention. But it's the beer that matters, not the head retention. Or the flavor, not the head, if that matter. So the aroma is definitely very close to what it tasted like before. Or yeah, it tasted like before I bottled. It's very. I've never brewed with honey malt before, so you know this is basically just a little bit of crystal malt, some maris otter, and some honey malt, and then the Willamette and U.S. Golding hops, and the SO4 yeast. So there's not much hop aroma. Although it was pretty bitter when I first tasted it, but this is really cold now, so doesn't a little bit of fruitiness. The off flavors that I thought I was smelling before, it's not really an off flavor. It's not something that I'm used to. It doesn't have much complexity to it, like you had said, getting like a a fresh bottle of Fuller's ESB. It was the first ESB I ever had, but this is like a very basic English ale aroma, like very sweet malts, not like caramel, but like a toasty, biscuity, and like a little bit of diacetyl in there, but not, and maybe a little bit of that acetaldehyde appliness, but overall, not really. When you smell it, it's not like, oh my god, this is a bad beer. Just something I'm not used to. So let's just go in. Let's just go in for the taste. Yeah, so I should say that you might have looked at the glass when I did that, because I just, candidly, Homebrew Wednesday style, I'm refilling the taste part. I want to compose my thoughts just a tiny bit, but I am going to let it warm up a bit, pour the triple, and then do the same thing in my initial thoughts, after it warmed up. But I don't think any of the flavors that I'm tasting can be considered off flavor. It's a very slightly sweetness up front, a very generic ale flavor. Like not too sweet, no complex hops. It's a very generic English ale flavor. No, nothing really pops out. I'm gonna let it warm up. see if any off flavors come out. But you know, when it's not tasting as expected, I think you jumped saying, "Oh, that's an off flavor," but I don't really taste any specific off flavors. I just don't taste anything crazy good. So if I do brew an ESB again, which I might want to do at some point, it would definitely be another 1 gallon test batch, and I would definitely just totally redo the recipe. But I'm gonna go get the triple, and I'll be back. All right, so we're back with my triple. For this glass, I know good for tasting beer is this nice snifter, but I wanted to, since I modeled this recipe after a Trappist triple, I just grabbed the first Trappist chalice that I could find in my cabinet of beer glasses, and I picked the classic Chimay chalice, which I don't use that often. So here's the moment of truth. Oh, very nice hiss. Very nice hiss. Let's see how carbonated it is. Oh, nice and carved. That's what I'm talking about. Oh wow, those extra 3 weeks really did the trick. So, before I get into the aromas that are absolutely jumping out of this glass, I can see that obviously the extra few weeks, it's been in the bottle for about 5 weeks or so, and I should mention that it did finish around 10:19, which most people would think is way too high for a triple. So definitely next time I brew this beer, which I definitely will be brewing it again at some point, the same recipe, is that I will start upping the temp earlier. I think I won't start upping it in day 6, and really I should have upped it on day like 3 or 4 to get it to dry out more. But what it did bring to the table was that it has some flavors that we would get in an aged triple or Belgian Strong Golden Ale. So that when I tasted it after only 2 weeks in the bottle, or a little over 2 weeks in the bottle, it has some like really sweet, like caramelly, biscuity, toasty flavors that you would get in an aged beer. And when I brought it to the Bitter and Esther's April tasting, everyone loved it. So now that it's nice and carved, even now I think it could use a touch more carb, but there's a nice amount of bubbles rising up in the glass, and there really wasn't any of that a few weeks ago. So let's go in for the aroma. Oh yeah, really nice lemon, a little bit of spice, some banana, that like really a little bit of pear, just like a really nice Belgian fruitiness. Not a ton of phenolics like I would have liked, but overall like really nice smelling triple. So let's go in for the taste. Yeah, there's definitely a really good carbonation developing after a month and about 7 days. I think I bottled this March 16th, so you're on April 23rd when I'm filming on the night of Homebrew Wednesday for this week. It's nice and carbonated, nice amount of bubbles rising to the top, small bubbles. Not much head retention, but for a triple you wouldn't really get head retention. Definitely on the sweeter side for a triple. And I definitely feel that as you sip, it would be one of those triples that the sweetness will kind of get annoying. Not annoying, but it will kind of build on your palate. But right now, after a couple sips, it's not really, too sweet. But it's definitely on the sweeter side for a triple. But just the flavor, just as in the aroma and in the color, it's a little cloudy because it's a bottle conditioned beer, and I poured pretty much the whole bottle. There's only an ounce left in there, so that's why it's carbon. It's not clear, but definitely a nice tongue prickling carbonation developing in the bottle. Perfect flavor. And yes, I would have liked more phenolic spiciness, which will probably get next time I brew it when it finishes out drier. When I raise the temp earlier, as I said. But just to get a beer that you brew a classic style like a triple, and even if you were to brew an American IPA, I should say, or any style that you like, and brew it to style, you know, like just a straightforward IPA, a straightforward Belgian triple, straightforward Hefeweizen, straightforward Saison, like any classic style, like I should say specifically, you know, British, German, Belgian, because that's where all our American styles came from, but like any classic style you brew, and when the beer comes out, it doesn't come out 100% where you like it, but when you taste it, you know, you're like, yeah, this beer tastes like a classic version of the style, and this triple definitely does. So good. Definitely a nice amount of carb. I think it could go another few weeks and get the perfect amount of carb, but for this amount of bubbles to be rising, I'm definitely confident, you know, that, you know, it should be pretty good. And with all that cloud, I don't know from where in the bottling this bottle came from, but there obviously was a lot, you know, in suspension, because it's pretty cloudy now that it's, you know, carved and some of the yeast has settled to the bottom. Oh, really good. And it does finish clean enough. I know I was saying that the sweetness would get annoying or build up on the palate, but it's really nice. So to wrap this up, I'm sure this will be another really long video, especially because I had to talk about 2 beers. So I am going tomorrow to Bitter and Esther's, my local homebrew store, which I've talked a lot about, to pick up the ingredients for my SJ Porr beer. And I decided before I start filming this Homebrew Wednesday that I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm brewing. Number one, because a lot of the Americans have already brewed their beer, so I'm not giving away much. And number two, I really don't think anyone else is gonna copy me. This is a very unique idea, and I really don't think anyone is really thinking of going this route. So, you know, I'm not going to tell you obviously the recipe per se, but, you know, and the recipe is unique in and of itself, which I'll tell you about in a second. But I really don't think it's really, you know, so worth it to be so secretive, you know, because it's going to be a challenging beer to brew, challenging beer to manage fermentation, and so on and so forth. So the beer is going to be called Self-Righteous Wookiee. And I showed Puka and see a picture of the label on Facebook chat, but I'm not going to show you guys because the label has all the ingredients on it. So until you're going to try it, I'm not going to let you know what ingredients are in it, malts and hops and yeast. But if you didn't know already from the name, Self-Righteous Wookiee, they're my two current favorite standby black IPAs are Stone Brewing's Sublimely Self-Righteous Ale and Firestone Walker's Wookiee Jack. So to combine the name together, Self-Righteous Wookiee. I know it's a corny name, but those beers are just so iconic to me. And the black IPA style, when brewed well, just brings my love of hops and malts and dark beers and hoppy beers together in such a harmonious way that I felt like I had to brew one for now that I'm getting to know my system better. And I brewed the triple came out so well, my third batch on the new equipment, that I had to just take two of my favorite beers, match them up together, and see what happens, and then let you guys try it, obviously. So, So basically, it's gonna be a 5-gallon batch. You know, and I usually collect more anyway than 5 gallons. So I'm gonna, even if I lose some to when I lose some to dry hopping, especially because I'm gonna be dry hopping with pellets, you know, I'll still have a decent amount of beer to bottle. And if I need to brew it again, I'll spend the money to, like, you know, brew a 3-gallon batch or so. But anyway, so it's gonna be about a 1085 OG, because both of those beers are pretty big, with about 90 IBUs. So, and then just a straightforward English ale yeast, because the Wookie Jack is fermented with the English ale yeast. So, and then one new thing that I'm doing is I have brewed with rye before, and I have brewed a rye IPA before. You know, obviously before starting my Homebrew Wednesdays, but I have brewed an all grain rye IPA before, and I brewed a rye saison, so I brewed with rye. One thing that I'm gonna try with this beer is adding some gypsum to the boil. Some would add it to the mash, but so I'm not really changing pH because I'm brewing an IPA. I'm not going to be brewing like a stout or another beer where the pH really matters as much, but I was speaking to John at Bitter Nesters on the phone because I'm having the ingredients put aside for me, so I can just run to Brooklyn after work, get the ingredients, chat a little bit, and go instead of having to weigh everything out, mill it, and oven, all that. So he said to add it to the boil, so I'll probably add a teaspoon of gypsum to the boil and see how that, you know, helps the yeast by adding a little more calcium to the beer, to the wort, and we'll see how that goes. Because my beers haven't really been attenuating down all the way, which there's so many factors involved: fermentation temperature, pitching rate, all that. So we'll see. You know, we'll see how I can manage fermentation better with this one. But Beersmith says that it should be able to ferment down all the way with, you know, straightforward good English ale strains. So we'll see what happens. But I'll definitely be making a starter, so it should be pretty good. I'm very confident that this, you know, will be, you know, a continuation of my my good, you know, my beers that are coming out exactly the way I wanted to, like this triple. So that's it for Homebrew Wednesday. Of course, next week's Homebrew Wednesday will hope, if I have time, I should have time, you know, to post the brew day footage from the Self-Righteous Wookie, and you know, maybe I'll shoot a little bit at Bitter Nesters when I go there tomorrow to, you know, just show you the store, me picking up my ingredients and all that. Yeah, I might actually film a short snippet with, you know, one of the workers, maybe John, about recipe formulation. But we'll see. But definitely brew day footage. So happy Homebrew Wednesday. Haven't been double fisting on a Homebrew Wednesday in quite a long time. So cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Hope, you know, all your SJ Porr challenge beers are going well, fermenting well, or if you bottle them, conditioning well. And I'll see you next week. Cheers.